Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. MSN, more than 90 charged over alleged Minnesota fraud. Forbes, Kash Patel says Federal Bureau of Investigation investigating Minnesota fraud. 90 people have already been charged. It is possible or either likely that Tim Walz and other Democrats will be indicted alongside the 90 individuals already charged in this billions of dollar fraud scheme. The White House right here. Yes, there's something wrong with Tim Walz. And it cost taxpayers $1 billion. Then you have a New York Times article. And it's very rare when the New York Times actually titles something in a manner that implicates Democrats, how fraud swamped Minnesota's social services system. So that's pretty clear cut. There's no way around it. Hit subscribe to this channel. Happy New Year, everybody. To my super chat, thank you. Hit subscribe if you're new. Happy New Year, everybody. Have a safe, beautiful, wonderful New Year's. And 2026 is going to be absolutely amazing for the country. And hopefully, God willing, amazing for you and your lives. Let's get started. Hit subscribe. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. This is an ongoing story that implicates top Democrats in Minnesota. Check this out.
Breaking today, the House Oversight Committee announcing 2 blockbuster hearings on the Minnesota fraud scandal. State lawmakers who raised red flags years ago will testify on January 7th. A second hearing on February 10th could put Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison under oath. Chairman James Comer accusing both men of, quote, either being asleep at the wheel or complicit in the alleged schemes that drained taxpayer dollars from social services programs. Governor Walz's office fired back this morning saying, quote, we're always happy to work with Congress, though this committee has a track record of holding circus hearings that have nothing to do with the issue at hand. President Trump, meanwhile, chiming in today as well, calling Walz a, quote, crooked governor. Lisa Booth, this is a man that was within an inch of being, the vice president of the United States. This is Tim Walz. And the fact that he's deflecting and pushing back and blaming President Trump, and this is all political, to me rings very hollow.
Well, yeah. Can you imagine that Kamala Harris wasn't the worst part of the Democrats' 2024? Someone who blew past $1.5 billion in like 107 days to lose all 7 swing states, and somehow Tim Walz. I think he's worried about what investigators, both in Congress and federal investigators, are going to uncover about all this, of what Minnesota officials allowed to happen in their state, particularly Keith Ellison, who had a meeting with some of these fraudsters back in 2021. But I just want to make a broader note about immigration at large. I mean, President Trump in 2015 made the statement that other countries weren't sending their best. Mm-hmm. I mean, hello, this isn't an indictment of
me. He said, I've got subpoena power. He said, I am absolutely going to use that power to get to the bottom of this, because do you really think that officials in Minnesota, the governor's office in Minnesota, is going to do anything about this? I mean, but listen to Caroline Leavitt, press secretary. She was on Fox and Friends this morning. Listen to what she said about what they plan to do about the fraud.
Since Nick Shirley's journalism really brought this issue further to light, we have surged resources across the board to the state. So I want your audience to understand this is a top priority for the administration. The Department of Justice, as we speak, is continuing to execute search warrants and subpoenas. People will be in handcuffs as a result of the fraud that Governor Walz has allowed to occur for many, many years.
Criminality, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, look. It's funny. Walz now is saying, no, I've been on this. I've been enforcing. I've been all over this case. He's either complacent or complicit.
And that's the thing. Very likely, almost certainly, there's not only a little bit of complicity, there is possibly a great deal of complicity, where an indictment is not difficult to, an indictment leveled against Walz and others won't be difficult with all the money flow. See, it's one thing that, and really quickly, if you have, according to an MSN article right here, 90 people charged. Okay, it's not difficult, ladies and gentlemen, for if there's 90 people charged in a potentially $9 to $10 billion scheme, fraud scheme, okay, you're not going to get a handwritten note saying, yes, I, Tim Walz, or Ellison, or anyone else, Klobuchar, we conspired together to ensure that Democrats got kickbacks, or that billions of dollars were illegally spent or laundered or stolen from taxpayers in Minnesota and around the country. You're not going to get that handwritten note. That's not the way the wonderful, morally superior, and highly educated do things, okay? Whether it's a foundation linked to Democrats or this type of fraud, there are always a million degrees of separation. The issue, however, is that it's very difficult for the governor to distance himself, Tim Walz, from 90 people being charged and potentially $9 billion in fraud. That's very, very difficult. Okay, you can imagine if it was a red state and there were 90 people charged, and the governor of the red state was a supporter of President Trump. I mean, every investigative journalist on the planet, and you're going to hear one of them in a second, every investigative journalist on the planet would be pointing to not only the governor, but also President Trump. Also, one thing really quickly, when I do these segments on Minnesota fraud, I want to make categorically clear, ladies and gentlemen, that I have only love and respect for the Somali community in Minnesota and throughout the country and throughout the world, okay? Here's something really, really quickly. I'm tired, as we all are, of this type of, Democratic Party virtue type of signaling, but this is logic and reason. If there are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of human beings, and this is, again, a Democratic Party scandal, just like Jeffrey Epps was a Democratic donor, okay, it's not good politically and also morally to paint innocent individuals with the same brush, especially when you have hundreds of thousands of people who have nothing to do with this. So it should be labeled not a Somali fraud. It should be labeled Democratic Party fraud. So God bless the Somali community in Minnesota and everywhere. And I'm not just saying that just to be, for any purpose other than I truly mean it. It's just not good to paint an entire community, any community, with the same brush. This is a Democratic Party scandal, and that's how it should be referred to. Anyway, hit subscribe, check it out. Let's continue.
There's no middle ground here, because Shirley went out and in one day found over $100 million in fraud. Leering Center, you couldn't see that much? I mean, come on. So what kind of an investigation was that? I want to go in a slightly different direction. Now, look, there's going to be hearings. They'll refer some cases. At the end of the day, they'll lock up some low-hanging fruit. We won't get the money back, and that'll be the end of it. Here's the hidden metric we have. Treasury. Here's why. Treasury under FinCEN is the entity that controls and enforces the movement of money, like Western Union, MoneyGram, all of those things, but also the banks. None of this could have happened without a complicit money services bureau industry moving this money around to all the bad guys, but also overseas, which is what we're worried about. Why does that matter? Because not only do they have the ability to refer criminality to DOJ, they can button it up in a box and hand it to them, but they have the compliance power. Yeah. They can hit a bank, you know this, they hit a bank with a $1 billion fund. Why does that matter? Because if you start to do that, they'll stop. That's the only way to stop this thing. We know it's still going on. They'll hide under rocks. They'll figure a way around all measures. But if you stop the interlocutor, if you stop the middleman, this will finally go away. That's what you got to do. As the saying goes, follow the money.
We're talking $9 billion tip of the iceberg, Nicole. But I want to ask you about the FBI's role in this, because one former FBI agent said that the Medicaid fraud prevention fix that they're talking about here will not make any difference moving forward. You know, we can talk about money that's gone. I don't know if we get it back in a clawback like Paul is talking about, but how do you stop this from happening in the future?
And that's the important question. And I have to agree with that former FBI agent. I read the article this morning and I thought, you know what, he's actually right. And it's a little concerning. But again, I think it comes back to, you know, having worked in the FBI and seeing the fraud. I know this is alarming to Americans right now, but to me, I am sadly not shocked. In FBI Miami alone, we had 3 healthcare frauds. We were #1 in the country for healthcare fraud, stealing money from the government, basically. It is a nonstop effort. But again, look at everything that DOJ and FBI are faced with right now. Foreign terrorist organization groups, you know, fraud, mass shootings, you know, the violent crime. They are working tirelessly. But again, the important part to note is that there is no doubt in my mind. I know he mentioned the low-hanging fruit will be arrested. I hope that this is a lot more than just the low-hanging fruit. And I can tell you that there's a lot of tenacity at the FBI and DOJ about this right now. But these are complex investigations. They take a long time to work. I worked the first 4 years of my career was white collar. I mean, some of these investigations take over a year or more. Subpoenaing bank records, scheduling all the bank records, having your forensic accountant go through everything. Always follow the money. The bank records do not lie. And I sure know and hope that there will be accountability. I trust Caroline Leavitt when she says that there will be handcuffs. And again, you have to understand, DOJ was aware of some of this. There were former prosecutors involved under the Biden administration that turned a blind eye to this. They did not want to work these investigations because it did not fit the political narrative.
Of course, because Tim Walz was going to be the next vice president of the United States. But Tiffany, in Washington state, the attorney general there is already using this as a political tool and saying, don't you dare come to Washington state and look into our daycare centers. You might as well raise your hand and say, come on in and investigate me.
Right. It's like where there's smoke, there's fire. What's going on? Like, thanks for alerting us.
Weird how that happened.
Yeah. I mean, shocking. It's not just Minnesota. It's all over the country. It's California. It's Washington state, where our attorney general is defending the Somali community when there are allegations of fraud. It's interesting because 10% of the licensed child care facilities that are eligible for these subsidies are Somali run. And the overall state population is 0.2% are Somali. So many of these buildings also have no address. They cannot even provide an address. You know, whether it's in D.C. and you know, HUD just released their findings that they found billions of dollars went to 30,000 dead people. I mean, I was a fan of Elon and Doge. I defended them from day one because we needed political outsiders. We needed business people to come in. That's the only way this gets fixed.
And when Doge was finding out all and she's 100% right, when Doge was finding out all the fraud, within 3 months, it went from, and I remember telling people on this channel, I said, you know what? I'm not into the stock market, but Tesla's a really good, if I was, Tesla would be a good buy. Within 3 months, it went from an all-time high to one of the lowest it's ever been, Tesla stock, because wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats and others were keying Teslas. And so there was, when Doge was finding out fraud and billions in waste and non-governmental organizations pocketing taxpayer money and then filtering that money or laundering it into Democratic Party causes or politicians or campaigns. The whole thing was this corrupt ecosystem that Elon Musk and Doge discovered. And of course, every time they discovered something, oh, this is normal, we already knew. It's like, no, we didn't know. And then you saw attacks on Tesla dealerships. Okay, so what President Trump has done is shine a spotlight on all of this corruption from day one. This is upcoming's Nick Shirley, a YouTuber, very courageous, like an actual journalist. He's an actual journalist, not a public relations executive.
All right. Well, rampant fraud is going on in Minnesota. Their Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, well, she's busy making a giant fool of herself, wearing a hijab to stand in solidarity with the Somalis.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Peggy Flanagan. I am the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, and I'm really honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. I am incredibly clear that the Somali community is part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota.
See, I agree with her on that, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the thing. God bless the Somali community. This is a Democratic Party scandal. I love President Trump. Love him. I just wish that he would call it a Democratic Party scandal. It points directly to one political party, just like Jeffrey Epps, the Democratic donor. And I'll say it, it's to paint an entire community with one brush is not good. It's just not good, especially in terms of politics.
Well, thankfully, some are trying to expose the theft of taxpayer dollars in that.
And to my super chat, thank you, Richard. Happy New Year. Yeah. Go Canes. Happy New Year. Miami Hurricanes. Go Canes. Thank you, Richard. Thank you so very much. To my super chat, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Happy New Year to you.
State, including our next guest. Joining us now is independent journalist Nick Shirley, whose video documenting those suspicious activities at child care centers in the state has gone massively viral. All right, Nick, we've had you on this show before. You know, I'm a longtime follower of yours. You've done incredible work. I know you're an incredible investigative journalist on the ground.
By the way, go now and subscribe to Nick Shirley's YouTube channel. He deserves 10 million subs.
But I guess my question is this. How much investigating did you actually have to do to find these centers, some of them that have misspelled signs? Did you just find them easily, or how did you go about this? Because it's amazing to me that nobody else besides you saw a problem here when they can't even spell on the side of a learning center, Nick.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I have to give props to the man by the name of David, who helped me in this investigation. He's been doing research for years trying to expose this fraud, and nobody has given him the time of day to even talk about this. So with his help and my own investigation, I've known about the fraud taking place for a long time. Minnesotans have been telling me for a long time about the Somali fraud that is taking place. And with his help, we were able to crack over $110 million in fraud in one day. And that's just the tip. When people say it's the tip of the iceberg, it really is, because there's billions of fraud inside the state of Minnesota right now.
Nick, kind of on that topic, you said that, I believe you just said his name was David, has been researching this for years. In your experience, or in your opinion, just spending the day you spent out there tracking this down, is there any way that this hasn't reached the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz? I mean, take aside ongoing litigation or what have you, but is there any way that he could claim ignorance on this, just in your experience over this investigation?
Oh, it's so obvious.
So Nick Shirley is awesome. Richard, I got to do the Bernie voice. I can't do it at this second. I'll do it a little later. Happy New Year again. Thank you for the super chat. And go Canes. Nick Shirley is awesome. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Again, I have only love for the Somali community. I'm sure that this journalist doesn't dislike anybody in particular. He doesn't, he is, completely, he's just a journalist. He's a journalist, which is, of course, what most of media doesn't want nowadays, unfortunately.
If you're living in Minnesota, you have to raise your eyebrows and think, what's going on? Literally, if you drive around Minnesota, around Minneapolis, you'll see daycare centers, autism centers. You will then see transportation companies that have snow piled up as if they haven't moved in months. And then you also go into buildings where there'll be 20 healthcare companies, 14 and 22, the video that I published on X and YouTube. So it is like a kindergartner could figure out that there's fraud going on.
Nick, one of the most shocking things to me in the video that you posted was the reaction of some of the Somalis that you were interacting with. The one clip where they called the cops on you for simply asking about some of the healthcare companies, the 20 healthcare companies that were located in one building. Tell us a little bit about what your interactions were like on the ground.
Yeah, it's They couldn't even give me, I gave them plenty of opportunities to just answer simple questions. I wasn't going in with some crazy hard hitting question. I was asking them exactly from the paper, where's this money? Where are the kids? You have a capacity for 99 children. Where are the children? And why are all the windows blacked out? So these people simply could not answer the most simple questions as to where are the children inside these daycare centers.
Nick, when I was your age, I used to watch all the local news stations, and every local news operation had a guy, a roving reporter, who would go around and find waste, fraud, and abuse. Are there local reporters like that?
There was one in Southern California in the 80s called Fight Back. And it's like, those are like back in the day, you would want, this was not controversial. What Nick Shirley is doing now, back in the day in the 80s or 70s or even the 90s and even early 2000s, it wasn't controversial. There's nothing controversial about this. Okay, there's fraud, taxpayer fraud. Okay, and it's like when Democrats say we need to, Bernie Sanders, okay, Bernard Sanders wants to tax the rich, tax the wealthy, tax the billionaire class. If you fixed all the fraud, if you found all the waste and fraud and the billions and billions of dollars going to business or charities that are not functioning charities that are used to launder the funds and the money and the currency, if you just made sure that taxpayer money didn't go to corrupt endeavors, you'd find a lot more money than just taxing the billionaire class. But it's like a racket. It's like a gigantic racket. And it's just unbelievable. And it's like it took an independent journalist, Nick Shirley, and subscribe to his channel. Okay, it took a young man in his early 20s to do what all of the newspapers and all of the investigative journalists in the state of Minnesota should have done for years. And the question is, why didn't they do this?
In your area, and why do you think they weren't?
Why didn't all the investigative journalists, why didn't all the reporters or publications in Minnesota do exactly what Nick Shirley is doing? They live in the same state, so it's like, why not?
Doing the work that you did.
I don't know. They're scared of being called nowadays because it's Somalians that are committing this fraud. People are scared to be called Islamophobic, racist, in which has nothing to do with what's going on, because fraud is fraud. It doesn't matter if it's a black person, white person, Asian person, Mexican. Fraud is fraud, and we work too hard simply just to be paying taxes and enabling fraud to be happening.
Listen, it's called Connect Team, and it's
Nick, I mean, it's stunning. Congratulations again on your video, by the way. Well deserved. All these people are finding it and finding you and all the good work that you do. But Governor Tim Walz is pushing back on the investigations into the Somali community over the massive welfare fraud that's happened under his watch. Take a look at this.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat.
This is complete nonsense. There's nobody. The scapegoating. There's no scapegoating. Although the one thing I will say is, yes, do not. I don't think the scandal should be labeled a Somali scandal, because then Democrats, you're doing. God bless President Trump. He's doing Democrats a huge favor by labeling it that. It's a Democratic Party scandal. Like I say, God bless the Somali community in Minnesota and throughout the country. You have hundreds of thousands of good, beautiful, honest people. You have 90 indicted. But how is this able to take place? It's not any group of people that's doing this. It's Democratic Party politicians in a political machine, either allowing or being complicit in the fraud. What are the chances that Tim Walz is complicit? What are the chances he committed crimes along with others?
And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
So it sounds to me, Nick, that Governor Tim Walz is saying that you and others that are out there trying to expose this, you're doing it because you're white supremacists. What is your response to him?
Yeah, Tim wants votes. There are entire apartment complexes where white people have been pushed out of these apartment complexes because Somalians have taken over, and they're inside of these towns like Minneapolis, where they can go get votes from these people. And if you have 100,000 people that will vote for you because you're going to enable and let this stuff happen, and because you're going to call a white person racist for calling out facts, this is what's going to happen to a state like Minnesota. Minnesotans, they say Minnesota nice, but they are very upset. And I totally understand why they're upset, because they don't have a governor who's actually working for them. He's actually working against them.
So right here, Democrats allowed $1 billion heist to take place, dozens of individuals. $1 billion is intended for child food assistance. The fraud involved is massive. This is from the White House. A complex network of nonprofits and affiliates, largely run, nonprofits tied. The massive scandal unfolded on Walz's watch. He did absolutely nothing about it. All enforcement has been at the federal level, not state level. In fact, the state's cowardly Democrat officials were reluctant to act, tolerating, if not tacitly allowing, the fraud and ignoring whistleblowers. I mean, at a certain point, if you ignore all the whistleblowers and you allow, and for example, if there's suspicious bank activity that you you just ignore these suspicious activity reports that were linked to Biden, for example, at a certain point, it's not just turning a blind eye. You're actually being complicit. It's not difficult really to prove.
Nick, your video's been viewed 93 million times. What do you think will be the result of this? Do you think that things will change because of bringing attention to this, or do you think it'll be much the same, swept under the rug and keep moving forward?
Yeah, there better be change. People are demanding it. The investigations have been launched just from that video alone. And so there better be change because, like I said, we work way too hard to be paying taxes. We work way too hard to be not knowing where our money's going. And at the end of the day, the people in the government, they work for us. We don't work for them.
Where's the leftist or liberal equivalent of Nick Shirley? I mean, the only thing you have is somebody going and filming a protest. Oh, look, we're here at the protest. And we're on the ground. It's like, okay, but what are you finding? Where is the rampant Republican fraud? Where's the 93 million viewed video that just shows Republicans allowed billions in taxpayer dollars to go to a conservative cause or whatever? Where is that? Where are the laptops? Where's Donald Trump Jr.'s laptop or President Trump's private servers with top secret intel? Where's the dossier that Trump and Giuliani purchased to set up and frame a Democrat? Where is the Republican National Committee cheating, or the God forbid President Trump? But where's the Republicans kicking out President Trump because of cognitive issues, which he doesn't have, of course? But Democrats it's hilarious. They're trying to make it, oh, look, he fell asleep. It's like, no, you're still not. It's not even close to, not even light years away from the actual reality of why George Clooney wrote that op-ed. But where are the Nick Shirleys on the left? They don't exist because the rampant corruption is not within the Republican Party. The Democrats, they view the policies, Republican policies, conservative policies, as rampant corruption. That's their version of $9 to $10 billion fraud schemes.
And so it's their responsibility to hold these people accountable. And so if there's not something that's happened, people are going to be very frustrated. And so if President Trump's watching this, it's time to really get down to nitty gritty and to make a difference in this place of Minnesota that is pretty much like Somaliland right now.
Nick, this was such an important project. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing next. What's your next project that you're going to be taking on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to reveal too much, but the fraud exposing will continue. There's lots of things happening here inside of America and across the world. And so just showing people what things are matter of fact based. I'm not trying to make things right or left. Just trying to show everybody things as they really are, fact based. And you can say whatever you want. You can use all sorts of hate words and whatnot. But at the end of the day, my job is just to show people things as they really are. I'm not trying to put a right-wing twist or a left-wing twist on things. I'm just trying to show people things for as they really are.
And this man is, God bless him, doing a great thing for the country, risking his life. Where's the leftist equivalent of Nick Shirley? Is there any wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal journalist or progressive journalist actually like risking their lives? Not really. I mean, there's always, if you're in the public eye, you're always going to get, you're always gonna be faced with certain realities, okay, of being in the public eye. Everyone is. If you have a YouTube channel, everyone is. But where's the equivalent? Okay, that's the issue. The issue is that you don't need, like, Democrats don't have the equivalent of a Nick Shirley, because just President Trump winning is the end of the world for them. So that's the equivalent of finding out up to $9 billion fraud. Like, Nick Shirley actually finding billions of dollars in fraud is the equivalent of Trump enforcing immigration laws with ICE. Trump enforcing immigration laws with ICE is a grandiose scandal for Democrats. It's grandiose. It's far greater in terms of media coverage and, indignation and disdain than us, like the country finding out that, oh, by the way, there's potentially $9 to $10 billion in fraud in Minnesota. So it's like, when Trump actually enforces laws, that's the Democratic Party's equivalent to what Nick Shirley and the FBI now are finding out. That should tell you the state of American politics.
Well, there's fresh outrage over allegations of widespread fraud of taxpayer dollars in the state of Minnesota. A viral video appears to expose that alleged fraud at several Somali-operated child care centers in Minneapolis. And the independent journalist who published that video, which now has over 100 million views, tells Fox News the scam is extensive.
I've known about the fraud taking place for a long time. Minnesotans have been telling me for a long time about the Somali fraud that is taking place. And that's just the tip. When people say it's the tip of the iceberg, it really is, because there's billions of fraud inside the state of Minnesota right now.
And Garrett Tenney is covering this story from our Midwest Bureau. Garrett, good morning to you.
Yeah, Bill, good morning. This is just the latest example of the kind of widespread fraud that whistleblowers say has been taking place in Minnesota for years. And elected officials from towns around the state all the way to Capitol Hill are demanding investigations now into child care centers like this one. Quality Learning Center in Minneapolis. You can see this child care center that has received millions.
Today we are witnessing
in federal tax money over the past 6 years, can't even spell learning right on its sign. And since May 22, this business has been investigated at least 13 times for more than 50 different violations by the Department of Human Services in Minnesota. The business is licensed for 99 kids, but when independent reporter Nick Shirley went by this month, the place appeared completely empty.
There's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota.
Shirley went to multiple child care centers and said he found similar setups where businesses that have received piles of taxpayer dollars were either closed or he couldn't see any children present. In response to that video that's now gone viral, Vice President J.D. Vance posted on X, "What's happening in Minnesota is a microcosm of the immigration fraud in our system. Politicians like it because they get power. Welfare cheats like it because they get rich. But it's a zero-sum game, and they are stealing both money and political power from Minnesotans." Senator Ron Johnson says this is now going to be a primary focus for congressional investigators.
These agency heads who funnel the federal money to the state agencies, they have to demand that the state agencies are transparent. And unfortunately, particularly in Democrat-controlled states, they're not. They're refusing to turn over those records. I've got subpoena power. I will use that subpoena power to obtain these records because we have to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is under fire for all of this happening under his watch, but he says he's now taking steps to investigate this fraud further. He claims it's something they've already been looking into and that they are now setting up guardrails to keep it from happening again. Bill?
And Nick Shirley's video at 110 million views as of this morning. Viral is an understatement there. Safe to say plenty of public interest in this. Garrett Tenney live in Chicago for us this morning. Garrett, thank you. Molly?
Thank you, Bill. Minnesota Republican Congressman Tom Emmer is the House Majority Whip and here to comment on all of this. An incredible story here breaking. As Bill noted, this has gone viral. Nick Shirley's reporting. He got out there and he did, the old-fashioned legwork. He walked the walk, he asked questions, and he revealed some fascinating stuff. And as many people have said, potentially the tip of the iceberg here. I want to get your thoughts on his reporting and what's been exposed here.
Well, great to be with you, Molly. I mean, look, this young journalist, Nick Shirley, goes out there and finds more evidence of fraud in one day than Tim Walz and our Attorney General Keith Ellison have found in 7 years. Why did he find it? Because he looked for it, Molly. While Tim Walz and Keith Ellison have been looking the other way, billions of dollars have been stolen from Minnesota taxpayers. You've got the child care centers that he showed you. There's 80 autism centers that are under investigation. There was a housing stabilization program that was created in 2020. They estimated it was going to run about $2 million a year. Molly, they shut it down in October because it was rife with fraud, and they'd already sucked out over $160 million. The U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota estimates this fraud could actually reach $9 billion before the investigation is all over. And we've got
So this is the state of American politics. And hit subscribe, and to my super chat, thank you. Can't do this without you, ladies and gentlemen. Your super chat support is so greatly appreciated. By the way, we'll be doing live streams at around 10 in the morning. I'll have one today at around 4 p.m. Eastern, and then again at like around 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll do 3 live streams a day. After this, go to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I'll have an upload, and we'll have 3 uploads every day. So we'll have about 6 videos every day on both channels. And so I'm going to hit the ground running this year. I'm going to work very hard for you, and this is going to be amazing. This year is going to be amazing for a number of reasons. I think that President Trump is going to hit his stride on a number of topics. The economy is going to be a lot better. A whole lot of people are going to get indicted under conspiracy statutes. You have people like Nick Shirley, and subscribe to his channel. My God. The man is, where's the equivalent? Here's the thing. I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post in 2015, 2016. Okay, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. You could read my writing on hagoodman.com. Hopefully, going to be published very soon, in a couple of days. You'll love the article. But and I can't wait to share it with you. But ladies and gentlemen, where's the equivalent of Nick Shirley? The only journalists or YouTubers on the left, or progressives, or liberal Democrats, or Democratic, pundits. Okay, all they do is pontificate and preach and condemn and judge. it's always just one form of the ladies at the View. It's preaching, virtue signaling, condemning, pontificating, lecturing. That's it. And if there is somebody on the ground doing what Nick Shirley's doing, it's, oh, look at this protest. Oh, look at these people upset. It's always about emotion. Oh my God, look what ICE is doing. Well, they're enforcing laws. Why don't you defund ICE? Oh my God, the planet. Okay, well then, Green New Deal. What's on? Oh my God, single payer. Well, they forgot about that. But there's no legislation. There's nothing that they're not uncovering fraud. But there's like no equivalent of this YouTuber. There's no equivalent. The media in general, liberal or progressive or leftist or left of center, it only preaches and pontificates and lectures and condemns. That's it, or lies by omission. I'm talking about the commentary. Okay. The investigative journalists never find billions in fraud. So when Trump and Republicans find billions in fraud with this independent journalist, zero indignation. When ICE is actually enforcing existing immigration laws that Democrats voted on, oh my God, it's the end of the world. This is the state of American politics. I'm trying to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is an important point. Literally enforcing the law elicits greater moral indignation and righteous indignation from Democrats. They're more indignant that the laws are actually being enforced than finding out that billions in fraud is taking place. Do you understand? The dynamic is so warped in today's politics.
Two major issues going on in addition to just the fraud. One, millions of dollars of this fraud has been shipped back to Somalia to a known terrorist group, Al-Shabaab. And two, we've got all kinds of whistleblowers now that are coming forward. And if what they're saying is real and can be documented, and what they're saying is they told Tim Walz about the fraud when it was happening. And he not only ignored them, he retaliated against him. I'm telling you, Molly, if that's accurate and it can be proven, Tim Walz needs to be held accountable. Everybody in his administration needs to be held accountable. This guy now is scrambling to make it look like he's doing something. 2 weeks ago, he created a position with a guy to investigate fraud. 7 years too late, Timmy. It's time that we find answers to all these questions and hold everybody accountable that has ripped off Minnesota taxpayers and, frankly, supported terrorists in a foreign country.
A lot of interesting points there. The House Oversight Committee as well looking into this and asking a lot of questions about what's going on in Minnesota. I want to get a little look ahead, so at 2026, some of the difficult challenges that Congress is facing, particularly when it comes to the Affordable Care. To an update on one of our biggest stories heading into the new year. The Department of Health and Human Services is cutting off all federal child care payments to Minnesota. This in response to allegations of sweeping fraud. And the White House says there will be consequences.
This is a top priority for the administration. The Department of Justice, as we speak, is continuing to execute search warrants and subpoenas. People will be in handcuffs as a result of the fraud that Governor Walz has allowed to occur for many, many years.
Well, a YouTuber who made a viral video on the scandal was seen squaring off with protesters outside of a daycare center. We have Garrett Tenney. He has more on all of this from Chicago. Good morning, Garrett.
Molly, good morning to you. This is a big move by HHS. It adds to the several other federal agencies that have already paused funding for Minnesota over those concerns of fraud. So now the $185 million a year that HHS provides the state for childcare is on hold. And starting immediately, the agency says the rubber stamping of payments through its administration for children and families is over. Every payment will now require a justification and a receipt or photo evidence before a state can receive that funding. The ACF Assistant Secretary says the pause on funding is necessary until we know how rampant the fraud in the childcare space really is.
Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
HHS is also setting up a nationwide hotline for folks to report suspected fraud in the child care space wherever they are. And the agency is also demanding Minnesota Governor Tim Walz turn over detailed records on the daycare centers highlighted in Nick Shirley's viral video. Yesterday, the YouTuber was back outside the Quality Learning Center, where he was confronted by a small group that was not happy about what he's doing there.
Think safety. Think
It's crazy what's happening here in Minnesota. People work way too hard for billions of dollars, whether it's a Republican doing the fraud or a Democrat doing the fraud. Fraud is fraud. So we should hold each and every single person accountable for it.
And you'll remember the sign of the Quality Learning.
By the way, I'm all for billions. I'm all for, if Republicans are doing it, then, expose it. Where's the 110 million viewed video of Republicans in red states committing this fraud? Okay, you're not. See, that's the thing. It's when Trump is actually enforcing laws, or when you have this YouTuber Nick Shirley actually exposing like rampant taxpayer billions in taxpayer money fraud going to non-existent charities or learning centers or leering centers in this case. There's no indignation. The ladies at The View do not care, and that goes for the furthest left individual out there. They just don't care at all. But if Trump is enforcing immigration laws, end of the world. End of the world. Or Doge is finding waste. Oh my God, it's the end of the there are literally people on their Teslas that have it says Elon and then no Elon, the no sign with the circle and then the slash mark. Okay. Like people who just enjoy Teslas, or they enjoy electric car vehicles. Okay, so they can't just simply drive a Tesla. They don't like Trump. They're not a fan of Musk, but it's like they had to protect themselves from their own political side. So driving an electric vehicle as a liberal, you had to, in some cases, put a bumper sticker letting other wonderful, morally superior leftists know that you're on their side. God forbid you just had to drive the car that you wanted. Please don't hurt the car. This is the state of American politics. The wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats and far left and progressives, their idea of politics is judgment, condemnation, preaching, lecturing, conveying a very bizarre, warped sense of morality, while at the same time ignoring rampant fraud. So, exposing this rampant billions and billions of dollars in fraud is not moral to the morally superior, if that makes any sense at all.
Learning center that had misspelled learning a few days ago, well, that sign is now fixed. As federal officials say, hundreds of investigators from the FBI, DHS, and ICE are now digging into all of the fraud schemes that have allegedly been taking place in Minnesota now for years. Molly?
Yeah, a lot of questions to come, systemic issues at hand. I wonder who paid to fix the sign. Garrett, thank you very much. Garrett Tunney, we appreciate it. Mike?
Molly, let's bring in Hugh Hewitt, Fox News contributor. Hugh, good morning.
Hey, Mike, good morning.
I'd like to start with a clip from Tricia McLaughlin from Homeland Security, and then I'll get your take on this scandal.
Our Homeland Security investigators, hundreds are on the ground. They're knocking doors. They're going to local businesses. They're going to these sites where we believe that there is rampant fraud. Our Homeland Security investigators on the ground are also seeing that these suspected perpetrators are really trying to cover their tracks. They're trying to whitewash the operational facts on the ground.
Day one.
Reporting to be a legitimate business, have legitimate business operations, when it's all a fugazi.
What's your assessment at this point, Hugh?
Well, Mike, it is sort of like octopuses wrestling. It began in 2021. It picked up a lot of speed late last year when 78 people were indicted, 52 were convicted. Scott Johnson over at Powerline has been covering this for a few years, but now it's ramped up even more because of the Nick Shirley YouTube video and Director Patel of the FBI surging these resources as well as DHS into Minnesota. It is alleged by First Assistant United States Attorney Joe Thompson, who's a career federal prosecutor, that of the $18 billion that flowed into Minnesota over the past 7 years, more than half is probably gone into fraud. So $9 billion, 9B with $1 billion is missing. So that will require an extraordinary forensic accounting.
If $9 billion is missing, okay, $9 billion missing in terms of taxpayer money, and this independent journalist, this YouTuber, Nick Shirley, really exposed a $9 billion scandal. Wouldn't you expect Democrats, since they're morally superior and highly educated, to applaud this man, this young man? Wouldn't you expect the ladies at The View or, the wonderful morally superior communists or democratic socialists or all these people who know morality and they're so moral and just and ethical, wouldn't you expect them to applaud Nick Shirley and to say, hey, congratulations on finding this fraud, left or right, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. If $9 billion of taxpayer money, these are the same people that say, well, why don't we have single payer? You can't even run normal charities well. Democrats can't even run simple charities in Minnesota without $9 billion being wasted. Maybe that's the reason Vermont doesn't even have single payer. Vermont has how many people? What's the population? Less than 1 million? They don't even have single payer health care. And it's like when the left talks about these things, they ignore that they can't happen, not only because the country is so massive, but there's billions in fraud. And we're just talking about $9 billion that they found in Minnesota the other day. How many billions upon billions did Doge find, but also are being taken from taxpayers in other wonderful, morally superior blue states?
And a great deal of investigation into finding out where it went. But I think we're going to find it's centered in the Somali community of about 80,000 people in Minnesota. Half of them are American citizens. Most of them are naturalized American citizens of the remainers. So it's going to go on for years, but the political fallout is hitting Tim Walz very heavily as demands for his resignation grow and his reelection campaign is in danger.
His strategy is puzzling. Tim Walz keeps blaming President Trump. Let's put that on the screen. Quote, "This is Trump's long game. We've spent years cracking down on fraudsters. It's a serious issue, but this has been his plan all along. He's politicizing the issue to defund programs that help Minnesota."
So this is the template, the Democratic Party, morally superior, public relations, hilarious, sad, pathetic public relations template, okay? This is Trump's long game. It's you don't even know his long game because he's won two elections. We had to suffer through 4 years of Biden, but they have no clue of what President Trump wants. Most Democrats have no understanding of why a voter voted Trump. 77 million Americans voted Trump. if you asked a Democrat why, they would have zero clue. They just don't know. Or they would say because they're bigoted and horrible people. That's like literal. So they don't understand anything about, they have no comprehension pertaining to Trump's long game. Okay. But this just sounds good. We've spent years cracking it down. No, they haven't. It's a serious issue. It's not just a serious issue. It's like a national security issue. But this has been his plan all along. What has been his plan? He's politicizing the issue to hurt people. It's like, by its very nature, inherent to $9 billion being lost is the politicization of it. Imagine everything Trump has ever done has been politicized by Democrats, even enforcing the law. So it's just unbelievable.
Minnesotans, is that deflection 101? Blame the president?
That is, and I put it on my radio show the other day, Mike. Governor WALZ has had about 24 different excuses, and I've said it.
Citizen E22, thank you so very much. Greatly appreciated. To my super chat, thank you. Thank you for the kind words as well. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you, Citizen E22, and Happy New Year to you and Richard and everybody here. Be here also at 4 p.m. today, and also at H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this. I'll have an upload, like a, less than 5-minute upload, and that you will enjoy on this topic. And that's on H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this live stream.
On the program before. Not my dog, it didn't bite you, besides you kicked him first. Mm-hmm. What is amazing to me is that Eric Holder did the vetting of Mike WALZ for Kamala Harris, and he never brought this up, and it's been hiding in plain sight. It took a YouTube video to get to 100 million people, and Eric Holder couldn't find, when he was supposed to be finding the person who should be next in line to the presidency.
They picked Mike WALZ because Democrats have no understanding of why people would vote for President Trump. They have completely clueless. And so they looked at central casting and they're like, well, Mike WALZ, he's a salt of the earth person. Doesn't he look like a Trumper in a bizarro world? Doesn't Mike WALZ look like the type of person who would vote for Trump? Well, let's make him vice president. And he speaks like this, so he's a salt of the earth person. He looks like a Trump supporter to Democrats, except he's not crazy and completely immoral. He's a Democrat, so he's a good person. But he kind of looks like that type of terrible person who would vote for Trump. So if maybe the Trumpers see Tim Walz, they'll say, hey, that's one of us who's voting Democrat. That'll help us win after we kicked Biden out of contention after he won his primary. And 14 million people voted for him, but George Clooney wrote that we have to kick him out. So I guess, he had potentially cognitive issues that we just found out during the debate. That's their mentality. That's like what's going on in their brain. When Tim Walz is one of the worst on a national scale. Obviously, he's successful in Minnesota. It was Walz Harris or Harris Walz. That campaign was the worst campaign. Not only was it one of the worst, had they lost politically in one of the greatest landslides, modern day landslides. Harris didn't even win even one primary vote. She didn't even make it to the Democratic primary. So Harris was the nominee after Biden had won his nomination because he literally won. That's why Democrats don't even have a functioning. They don't even have a functioning political party. They don't even have a functioning primary. Biden won his primary. They cheated Biden after he won his primary. There's nothing in the DNC rule book that says that you can win a primary and then be kicked out. At least they had the good sense to cheat Bernie Sanders before he ever had a chance to win the primary. It's like they cheated two people. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, let's continue.
It's really quite astonishing.
And then there's Ilhan Omar, a congresswoman who seems to be taking a victory lap on social media saying, I'm grateful every day to represent the people of Minnesota's 5th District. I came to Congress on a promise of co-governance, and it's been my honor to work with you all to deliver these wins for Minnesota. Together, we're building a brighter future for our communities. And yet, if she's that plugged into the community, shouldn't she have been sounding the alarm years ago?
Yes, and the whole approach of nothing to see here, keep on moving, there's nothing to discuss, will not work. And by the way, it's not going to stay in Minnesota, Mike. There are fraudsters who are connected to other fraudsters across the United States. Since this is primarily centered in the Somali community thus far in Minnesota, about 80,000 people, I would look to Washington State, Columbus, Ohio, Lewiston, Maine. There are other places where Somali refugees have settled over the last 25 years. And if you've got fraud in one community, expect it to travel. And I expect that the FBI, very, very, very experienced in tracing fraud via wire fraud and mail fraud, will be following every tentacle of the octopus parade that I've been talking about. But it is really mind-boggling, and I would recommend, people want to read in detail, the Powerline bloggers who received the Time Magazine Award for Blog of the Year some decades ago. They're on the case. They're digging deep into it, as is City Journal, as is Fox. It's not going anywhere. And Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, all the Minnesota DFLers, they won't be able to talk their way out of this. This is really a nightmare scandal.
And so this is why WALZ and others face indictment in the future. You have $1 billion that potentially could be over $9 billion in terms of a scandal. It's virtually impossible for the governor not to be involved in this type of grandiose fraud when you're talking about federal funding. And then you have the Attorney General, then you have others, representatives. You have a political machine. You have a political machine that allowed it to take place. He either gave tacit approval or was complicit. Okay? Interestingly enough, when you look at the 2024 election, okay, President Trump won every swing state. Okay? He won every swing state. And you look and it's like, Trump won every swing state, and he was, if you look at Minnesota, he got 46% of the vote. I'm just looking it up right now. Harris got 50.92%. He got 46.68%. Okay. He was about 130. He only lost the state by 130, around 130,000 votes. Okay. There are a lot of conservatives in Minnesota. Okay. A lot. Just like most blue states, all the counties are red except like the major cities. And so this is something that, 77 million people voted for President Trump. If you watch media, generally, it's like, oh my God, Trump is this anomaly. They're still looking at President Trump as this anomaly. If Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and President Trump's Department of Justice, when they do their job and people at the top are held accountable, the country is going to benefit immensely. So I think 2026 is the year that takes place on a number of fronts. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. We'll be back at 4 p.m. for a live stream here. God bless you all. Thanks, everybody. We'll do these live streams in the morning every